And it's about the size and dimensions of the piece of paper you'd find inside of a fortune cookie. And when he rolls it out, read in exquisite Sylvan script, the finest handwriting, is simply the question, what can I give you?
I'll say in Sylvan, instructions on how to get through the maze.
And its fingers very gingerly roll the parchment back up, tie the twine back, and then he reverses those directions, unties it a second time, rolls it back out. And this time it asks, were you given leave by the queen?
And it specifically says queen?
It does. Capital Q.
By the princess.
He rolls the parchment back up, ties it back up, undoes the twine, rolls it apart again. And then it says, then you cannot leave.
Explain.
And at this, he rolls up a little parchment, ties the twine up, gingerly places it back in the pocket, and then just shrugs. And the whole time you feel the snake inside of this thing's costume writhing around, trying to get free of your grip.
Did I see those mice coming and going?
You saw them dancing in the circle around him when he was playing, but you haven't seen them since.
Okay.
Your attention's been focused here on the guy.
Well, according to this note, we can't leave the garden without the queen's permission. Wait, does that mean that the queen has to be in the garden? Can we go back into the palace?
Given that the princess was in the throne, chances are pretty low that the queen is there. Also, that woman from before seemed a lot more nervous when the queen was mentioned.
I don't know that we're going to get any more information out of the snake.
I mean, that is pretty funny considering that you literally can make friends with snakes.
I don't think I can keep up the grapple during hideous laughter.
That's what I'm checking, but yeah, I think you're right.
Because his legs aren't...
No, you fall prone and become incapacitated as you just devolve into this hideous lap, slapping your knees, rolling around on the ground, tears streaming across his face. The creature in motley is immediately surprised by this. Go ahead and roll a wisdom check to see if you can break out of it in the next few seconds.
And this is not magic, right?
It's not a spell, or I guess it is a spell, but it's a spell effect. But no,
the racial feature is saves and or spells and magical effects.
Yeah, but this is like a fey curse.
Okay.
Kind of.
That would be a whiz save of 16.
Okay.
I don't think I wrote down. Did I write down the DC?
I have it here.
DC 10.
Yeah, it's real easy to break out of. So yeah, after just a few seconds, you manage to regain your composure. And at this point, the creature has stood back up and smoothed out the crumples in his motley, brushed the dust off. He reaches up with his hands on either side of his face and makes a big show of screwing his head back around the right way. And then turns around. And as Red's getting to his feet, he bows deeply to Red. And then he points with one hand at him, snaps his fingers a few times. Then with the other hand, he holds up 3 fingers.
I think you got 3 wishes. Ask him where the queen is and where Frenemies are.
No, yeah,
That's
good
2.
questions. Yeah. Can we get the queen's permission while in the maze?
And he simply shakes his head and then tucks one of the fingers into his hand. Now he's holding up 2 fingers.
Ask how to get to Frenemies.
How do we get through the maze to the home of Frenemies? What was his last name?
Tactalo,
the cobbler.
And he nods once. He claps his hands a few times, takes his flute back out of his coat, and begins playing another jaunty tune. Adrex, from behind you, you hear a couple more creaks as one by one, little rodents poking their heads out, looking especially adorable in their little tunics and jerkins and wooden shoes. And they kind of stream around you, maybe a dozen or so. And it takes them a minute to clear the distance between you and the rest of them. And these rodents set to work, using what for them are walking sticks, but what to you all would be toothpicks or twigs, drawing out a map in the dust on the ground around Red's feet. Then after a few moments, they disperse. The man in motley finishes his song, tucks the flute away, holds up 2 fingers again, tucks one of them back into his hand. Now he's just holding up his index finger.
Ask him if he's some sort of mouse villain.
What's the one thing we shouldn't do while we're in this maze?
At this, he turns to the side, where you can see the arrow sticking out of his butt, and he motions to it with a flourish.
don't shoot people in the butt.
I don't know, that seemed to work out pretty well for us.
Probably don't try and solve problems with violence immediately.
You said you've had dealings with fey creatures before, right? That's why you speak Sylvan?
Yeah.
More likely he's telling you don't kill things.
Oh, okay.
Don't bring
too
harm
late.
to fey creatures.
Hey! Adrex points to the hole in his chest. You started it!
And
You're not a fake creature.
The motleyed man kind of brushes his hands together a few times, looking at Red.
I'll thank him, bow, and go over to this map. Is it easy enough to memorize, or do I have to write it down?
Now, looking down at the ground, I mean, it's showing you a map of the surrounding hedges, and you'd be able to commit it to memory, but it wouldn't be difficult to just get out a piece of parchment and some charcoal and map it out. It's just showing you the route you'd have to take from this position to get to Tactalo's shop. Does anybody else make any motion to stop this motleyed man from leaving the area?
Raazu steps aside for him.
I mean, they feel like he did his part.
Okay, then he leaves and he turns down one of the hedges. And after 20 or 30 seconds or so, you hear the sound of flute music once again, but it's receding away from you now.
So, like, definitely some sort of mouse villain, right? Like a snake charming mice? Like, that can't lead to any kind of good.
Immediately, Red drops to the ground laughing again.
Yeah, because his skin, the lack of legs. Yeah.
I mean, it is pretty funny.
Adrex says, rubbing his chest.
No, Adrex did take a pretty severe wound there.
Yeah,
Okay, so that
Raazu,
lasts one round.
Raazu will patch Adrex up, give him 10 points
Okay.
of healing.
So he's saying we shouldn't like use violence. That's like 5 of the 6 standard responses that I have. I don't know. I'm kind of lost if we can't do that.
Just stick with the 6th.
The 6th is throwing rocks.
Yeah, and that worked out pretty poorly. Because I'm going to be real with you guys, I wasn't trying to kill that fairy.
says not to
I
use
was.
violence, but all of our encounters so far have been them fucking with us.
Yeah.
Still hurts. Ow.
Yeah, he did stab you with that spear pretty bad. I think that they should maybe do unto others.
Well,
So are you going to
So-
try to memorize this maze, or is Red making a, like, drawing out a map?
I don't think I
don't
have paper and
photographer's
parchment.
proficiency.
Okay.
Adrex
see.
is going to go over to the mice huts and peer into them.
And you hunker down real low to the ground, and there's no windows or openings to look into, just now and again, tiny wooden doors. Like, you wouldn't even know how to go about knocking on one of these things without breaking
take a
it.
claw, just tap, 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 tap.
But looking around, you only see them within, I don't know, maybe a 10, maybe not even that much, foot area on either side of this part of the thoroughfare. So you actually have to walk back 50 or 60 feet or so to where you got hit. It looks like just this little mouse village on either side of the walkway here, and you wonder how many of these have we walked past without noticing.
Can Birdie's a little smaller. Can he knock on the door without breaking anything?
I mean, any of you can get that with your finger and tap on one if you just want to try to get them to come out.
It's like tapping on the glass at a zoo. That's just rude.
Well, I mean, we've got this map. We should probably try and commit it to memory, and then
Does anyone have anything to write with? I don't.
None of us have any. Well, I mean, we could probably get some charcoal.
None of you have anything to write with?
Don't have anything to write on either.
I have a wand of pyrotechnics.
Birdie gets out his knife and just starts carving
Well,
the
you
map
can
into
spell
Adrex's
Elbereth
back.
on the floor, but that's about it.
And it's not difficult to commit to memory. I mean, like, third left, fourth right, that kind of thing. You're thinking... I mean, you have no idea what this scale is on this map, but kind of correlating with the turns you've taken so far, you're looking at maybe 30, 40 minutes.
okay, that's fair enough.
Longsword.
Let's get one perception check from the party. Make it at advantage, because you're being aided. And I'll let you
Birdie, do
decide
you have
who
the best
makes it.
perception?
Yeah, I have a 9.
Do
That beats me.
Do it like a champ. Yeah,
So 16 plus 9 would be 25.
25.
As you're following the directions drawn on this map, you once again realize, once again, you don't cross paths with any other travelers, but you do, now that you're more aware of the types of creatures that might live in the mazes, you do see signs of them. Every so often, you'll think you hear someone just around the next turn, but when you get up there, there's nobody there. Or you think you see a shadow moving away from you in the hedge. It's almost like the denizens of this place are avoiding you. And very notably, you don't see anybody else flying above you over the hedge. And after 30 or 40 minutes, you do arrive at a small shop. The door is only Birdie's size. Everybody else would have to, stoop down real low to go through it. It's a rather unassuming little place, and it's just... there's a sign poking out of the hedge that reads Tactalo's Cobblery.
Birdie refuses to go in. It's probably for the best. I'd probably stab him anyway.
At least you want to throw a javelin at him.
Birdie starts talking to everybody, telling him how terrible gnomes are and to be careful. I haven't actually met a gnome, but I've heard stories.
What kind of stories?
They're terrible. They eat babies, and they like to munch on small kobolds, and they can grow to be 20 feet tall.
Well, I don't think we have to worry about that last one, judging from the store.
And they can breathe fire.
Adrex can do that.
He can breathe ice.
That's close enough.
Is fire more or less dangerous than ice?
I guess it depends on the weather outside.
Well,
So just be careful. I'm not going in there.
What are you all
This
wearing
is-
on your feet?
boots.
Birdie doesn't wear shoes.
You don't wear shoes?
No.
Traveler's boots, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like Wendy wouldn't wear shoes either.
Okay.
Swing the door open since it's a place of business.
And when you reach down and swing the door open, I mean, you hear a little jingle as the door hits the bell. And you hear a voice from inside. Bizarre, kind of high-pitched voice, but also very gravelly, like it's coming from a heavily smoking child. And it barks out something that none of you understand, because I don't think any of you speak Gnomish.
Can you do that voice for me, though, real quick?
Oh, I can't. Sorry.
What?
Although, we did have a guy in one of our games who was playing a gnome, and he always did ridiculous voices for his characters. And this time he also slipped into a squeaky, high-pitched accent, but he chose a New Jersey accent.
Oh God!
So for years and years, every time somebody played a gnome, we always asked, "Oh, you play the Joyzy gnome?" But no, nobody was ever playing the Joyzy gnome again.
That's terrible.
Hey, I'm cobbling over here.
Oh, this is a
It didn't
Boston
start out as a Joyzy accent. It kind of ended up there though. After
It just
most of the
wandered.
session.
It just wandered New England for a little while, right?
So Adrex, you're the one opening up the door and heading inside.
No?
No, who was doing that?
I am.
That was
Wendy's doing it.
Raazu,
Windy, alright.
Opening up
again-
that door. Get in there.
Okay.
Raazu stoops
And-
down, steps inside.
Yeah, if you stoop way down, you're able to squeeze inside. But it's very clear. All the furniture, everything in here is made for a creature of about Birdie's height. Looking around the place, you see all different forms of footwear. I mean, you see everything from cloth shoes to beautifully made wooden clogs to heavy metal-toed boots in all different shapes and sizes, all the way down to the mice you saw dancing earlier, all the way up to shoes that Adrex would find very loose.
Ooh.
And after a moment, this gnome comes out into the front room from the back where he was, and he looks all of you over, stooping down and trying to enter his shop. And he beckons you all inside. And just like with the small woman at the cat house that you went to earlier, I mean, at the sight of the five of you, his face lights up. He's very excited about what's about to happen next. And then he lays eyes on Adrex. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, going into places, we meet much nicer people than when we stay out of doors.
Do I see his face light up when he sees me?
It looks
Enter.
it's about the same response that you got at the cat house. It looks kind of like they're delighted to do business with people from the other side. And you got that same sense at the party you were at as well. You were kind of like the stars of the show. When his eyes land on Adrex, they get real wide. And he brushes a stack of tools and things off a nearby chair, and he drags it forth and sets it down and says, "Come forth, Sirrah, and have a seat." And he clasps his hands together and he says, "I want to get a look at those boots."
Sure. Alright.
It's an uncomfortable
Yeah.
chair because it's made for a gnome, but you managed to. It's kind of like
Squeeze my way in.
sitting in one of those like little Fisher Price toddler chairs.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And with remarkably swift speed and strong hands, I mean, he gets a bench out and he pulls one of your legs up on it and he starts unlacing the boot. What are the rest of you doing at this point?
Birdie's like peeking inside the building, just watching, still afraid.
Are there
Wendy's
enough
looking at all the
chairs
different shoes, and she's thinking to herself, but he already has boots. I don't have anything.
Are there enough chairs to comfortably seat all of us?
There are, but he's only giving Adrex the special service here.
Oh, that's
Raazu's-
fine. I'm just gonna sit
Raazu's
down in the back of
Okay.
the room and kind of look over the shoes.
Raazu's just looking for steel-toed and the heavier duty type boot type things.
Okay.
As far as I know, my boots don't need repairing.
Very notably, there aren't any like armored boots. There's no like plate or that sort of thing. But he gets Adrex's boot off, and he's now like holding your foot in his hand and looking it over and just marveling at the scales on it and the claws.
We all smell it.
And he stops for a moment. He looks one moment. He says, "I beg your pardon. Half a moment, sir." And at this point, he's speaking common, having seen there were no gnomes amongst your little troop. And he starts making his way towards the door leading into the back room. He says he will be back in just a moment with a scrub brush and a bucket of froth.
Nice.
Adrex is content to let all of this happen.
Wendy,
Yeah.
after a few moments of just looking at all the different shoes, you notice a couple pairs, not frequently, but a couple pairs that you're pretty sure belong to bird people.
Nice.
The specialty shoes that you think would come up over taloned feet. You're not sure why any self-respecting bird would wear such devices, but there they are.
No, you have lost track of Wendy's character. Wendy's looking for a pink set.
And, I mean, Birdie's just standing out there looking inside.
He's just kind of standing in the door, half in, half out, just like watching this gnome, waiting for him to start breathing fire.
He eventually does reemerge, and he's holding this large wooden bucket, which he sloshes down onto the ground in front of, or Adrex has one of his feet up. And he starts moving over in Birdie's direction.
Birdie screams and slams the door shut.
And, I mean, the gnome, for a moment, is taken aback.
He's skittish. It's fine.
He tells you he was just going to close the door. It seemed like there was a draft blowing in. And then he sits down and he gets his brush out and he just starts scrubbing Adrex's foot. Just washing the dirt and the trail off of it. Getting in between all the crevices of the toes. And as he does, he makes small talk about his job and his life. About how exciting it is to have customers from the other side.
Well, the princess did send us.
And when you mention the princess, the scrub brush slips out of his hand, clatters to the ground, and he looks up at you with great fear written all over his face.
This is a common theme I'm noticing.
And he stammers out, I know, holding up his hands like somebody who's behind on their payments to the Joycey mob. And he stammers out a stream of just apologies and excuses. And what do you say to him?
Can you finish cleaning my feet?
And he nods, of course. And as he does so, the small talk stops. And he's being more forceful with the brush now. He's very, very focused on making sure he does the best job that he possibly can.
Adrex looks at the rest of the party and rolls his eyes, kind of shrugging as best he can in his tiny little chair, like, yeah, this is... of course.
Like, I just want to interject that if anybody ever made fan art of this, I want to see Adrex sitting in a tiny little chair having his feet brushed by a gnome.
Wendy's going to take pity on this poor gnome and say, to be clear, we didn't meet her until yesterday. Like, we don't We're not here to do anything to you.
We're just the errand. We're just the errand people.
So how can we help you pay back the princess?
His scrub brush splashes into his little bucket as he finishes up his work. And he tells you that the slippers were finished and ready to be delivered in time for her party. As expected, the princess's payment, of course, as always, arrived on time. He has no complaints about that aspect of the transaction whatsoever. Princess Dandelion has always been one of his best customers, and he's always overjoyed. And he continues on like that.
Did you not have permission from the queen?
When you break his train of thought, he sheepishly looks down and he says, there was a break-in at my store, and the slippers were stolen.
Of course they were. Any idea who the culprit might be?
He nods. He says he thinks he might.
You know,
I think you missed a spot there. And Adrex points.
And he nods sheepishly and grabs the brush up and gets the spot out.
Who? Can you tell us about who might have stolen them?
He collects up his bucket and his brush, and he says that he needs to get his next set of tools, but he will tell you the whole sordid affair. And he looks back up at Red and he says, "You really think you can help?"
Yes.
And it explained to the princess that this wasn't my fault.
Well, we need to know whose fault it is, and then we can go solve the problem.
He nods and he disappears into the back, and you hear some clattering around, some drawers sliding in and out. He comes back out with 3 brightly colored, small, just glass bottles that he lines up on the little bench next to Adrius's foot. And he pulls the stopper out of one of them and begins painting his toenails.
Wendy's looking wistfully at the pair of very cute bird shoes and says, "Would us helping you be like a really big favor?"
He looks up and sees Wendy noticing the shoes. And he kind of sighs for a moment. He asks if Madame would like to try them on.
And Wendy's already trying them on.
Okay. Tactalo explains that he had a customer in last week while he was still working on the slippers. A very brutish and rude elven woman asked to try them on. But at this point, one of the slippers was mostly complete. It just had a few finishing touches that needed to be applied. And he declined. And she knew they were for the princess, and she gave him a little bit of sass about that. And then Tactalo commented to her that it wasn't because they were the princess's slippers, it was because this woman's feet were way too big. To which she took insult and stormed out of the shop.
Did you get a name?
He tells you her name is Lydia.
Lydia.
He knows where she lives because he's seen her at a nearby market where he procures some of his supplies. So she must live off of the hedge near to that market. It's half a mile from here, if that.
Okay.
And he's placing wads of cotton in between Adrex's toes.
And Adrex flexes his toes.
He tells you that... Actually, he doesn't give you any more information than that. He tells you that recovering the slippers would be a big mistake. And what would really help him out is to return to the princess and take the blame for the loss of these slippers yourselves.
Wait a minute.
He says that's why he hasn't reported them stolen to the princess. He's sure that she would hold him responsible and he would be punished.
Why?
Why don't we just go get the slippers instead?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it such a bad idea to try and retrieve them?
And with this, he clams up and closes his eyes tightly, and he stopped his work. And he says, "Our dearest and most beautiful and most merciful Princess Dandelion has the most imperceptible of personality flaws. So small, perhaps you haven't noticed."
Raazu rolls her eyes at this.
He says that she is, despite her best intentions and her friendly demeanor, she does have a jealous streak. And that when she places an order for new slippers or shoes or boots or whatever, she demands that certain magics be placed upon the shoes so that no one else can wear them.
But
So did you get to that yet, or?
And he nods. And he says this is why he hasn't been around to Lydia's place to try to take them back. If she put them on without getting his permission, is it possible you can just go back to our loving princess and explain you couldn't find my shop? Tell her you got lost in the maze.
We already tried that excuse when we were late for her party. That
what
didn't
happened
work.
to
Late
Lydia?
in air quotes.
Wendy, you said what?
What happened to Lydia?
And he looks at you and asks how the fit is.
And I'm thinking back on that magic spell now and looking at these shoes very warily.
And he picks up on the look and he says, "Oh, don't worry. Our princess does not have bird feet. Those
Yeah,
were
that's
commissioned by..." And he rattles off some bird-like creature who commissioned those particular shoes, but wasn't able to pay the full price, and so he kept them and leaves them on the shelf for aesthetic reasons.
They are very aesthetic.
Wearing these, though, you would not be able to make a Talon attack.
Yeah, but I would be able to make a sick look shoe attack. Fashion attack.
+6.
You're dodging the question, though.
What was the question?
What terrible fate has befallen this Lydia for trying to put these shoes on?
He says that in the many years that he has had the honor of working for Princess Dandelion, nobody has ever actually stolen a commission before. He doesn't know what's become of her.
So you weave a spell, but you weave magics, but you have no idea what they do.
And he says he's sure that the magics are very powerful indeed, but no, he doesn't have any idea.
Well, all she did was steal a pair of shoes. She didn't hurt anyone. We should at least try to figure out what happened.
And at that, Tactile corrects you. She did indeed hurt somebody. She stole from the princess. That is a grievous injury done to Princess Dandelion.
Couldn't we just go back to the princess and say Lydia stole them? Is that an option?
And then
he
she's
starts
going to
shaking his
screech
head.
at us?
Tactile starts shaking his head vigorously.
Right. She's awful.
Yeah, she's going to screech at us and tell us to bring her Tactilo's head on a platter.
And he clasps his hand together and he says, please don't bring my head anywhere on a platter.
Yeah, but like if we think about this, how do you see that conversation going? Because head on a platter seems pretty likely to me as well. So you might want to point us towards this Lydia.
He tells you that the best he can do is give you directions to the marketplace she lives near. He doesn't know which actual house she's in, just that she lives near to this market because that's where he's seen her before. The market's, like he said earlier, about a half a mile from here. He gives you the twists and turns needed to reach it.
You said that she's an elven woman?
Yes, she's an elf.
It's good. I'm a bit of an elf expert, you might say.
Your toes look very beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Red just sort of shakes his head and puts his hand on his temple with that. Alright, so should we bring the slippers back to you or just bring them to the princess? Is there anything we would need to worry about with the magics if they've been triggered?
What's Red's passive insight?
Fairly high. Other page, there we go. Passive insight is 18.
When you say, should we bring the slippers back to you or back to the princess, you see a look of relief. And he tells you that you should, of course, deliver them to the princess post-haste. And he was very quick and very relieved to give you that answer, and you think it's probably because if there's any fault found with the sandals, she'll blame you instead of him. So he thinks this is a great idea. If you're able to recover them, of course.
See, if it were me, if I were in the... this is me speaking out of character, but if it were me, I would be like, no, bring them back here so I can make sure they're fine before I send them off to the... whatever.
Alright, so let's get those directions and let's get going.
Yep.
Are you wearing the boots out, Wendy?
I mean, he doesn't want us coming back, so yeah.
Well, he inquires if you are interested in buying those shoes as you go to leave.
Oh, I thought it was like a real big favor, though.
Is that a yes?
How much are they?
Roll a d12.
Do you take food? 11. One for each foot.
You ask him how much they cost, and he goes over to his workshop, and he fishes around for a bit. He comes back holding a sewing needle, and he tells you that you can have the shoes for a drop of your blood.
I mean, why not at this point?
Okay?
Wow.
He pricks one of your fingers.
I'm really curious what he's going to do with that blood.
Do you ask him?
Yeah.
And
I
he-
mean, I'm already doing it when I ask.
So you guys know that when I read modules, I love just funny wording in modules. And it says, what the trader wants with this blood, they do not reveal. Whatever it is, it can't be anything good.
It's probably fine.
That's really good.
Can I get my boots back now? My nails look great, by the way.
And he does. He slips your boot back on and laces it up. Walking around in footwear, Wendy, feels extremely strange, and it takes you a few minutes to kind of get used to it. Clearly, these were made for aesthetic purposes only.
That's fine. I fly most of the time.
I mean, do you say that to him?
Yeah.
At this point, he stops what he was doing, and he looks at you directly. And he says, you were not informed.
I'm picking up a few things. What?
He says, he holds his hands up, and he says, If the princess didn't explain, it's perhaps not my place to say.
Well, I'm sure the
Speak.
princess would appreciate any and all help that you could give us on our endeavors to get her slippers, which you let get stolen.
Make a persuasion check on that.
Oh,
10?
A 10?
Yeah. Oh, 11.
11?
I have a +1. This isn't mahogany.
He tells you that by law, flying within the confines of the hedge is punishable by death.
Yeah, but is anything not punishable by death, really?
I wasn't even able to fly outside of the hedge.
and there were these little annoying bastards that were flying around, threw rocks at us. They flew over the hedge.
He says that from time to time, creatures who do not respect the princess's law will fly in the maze, and when they are captured, she is not kind to them.
Oh, so then what we did is the due punishment. Cool.
He asked, "Wait, what have you done?"
They threw rocks at us. I got a little heated, and I may have impaled one with a javelin.
The more and more you explain, the more nervous he gets, and he asks if you've been given a writ by the princess to act on her behalf as executioner.
I'm sure it's fine. We explain it to her, she'll give us one. She's awful, so, it works out.
It's starting to become very clear that every moment a lot of you spend inside of his shop is just making him more and more nervous at this point. He was already in some pretty deep doo-doo, and now he's wrapped up with you people. Anything else you want from this gnome before taking off?
Yeah, I mean, stuff might go real bad with us. You might not even want our blood. Plausible deniability, right?
I mean, he's already pricked your finger and taken the needle away. You'll never get that blood back.
Damn. Oh, I'll get it back. That'll be our level 20 adventure.
He asked for a drop of blood. He didn't say it was a giant-sized drop of blood. Which
A
amounts to-
humorously sized drop of blood.
Birdie,
Yes.
standing outside in the hedge. They're in there for a very, very long time.
So, like, do I see something, or because I have a thing I want to do?
You don't see anything. I mean, there's no
Okay,
windows
so-
looking in or anything.
Like, I am afraid of the gnome, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to booby trap the door, like with a tripwire, and then stand there with a rock in my hand and have a held action. Trips on it, hit them with the rock.
If the gnome trips on it,
No, just anybody, because just anybody.
who's the first person out the door in that case?
Adrex. It's gotta be Adrex.
Right. Then as soon as Adrex opens the door, make a dexterity saving throw.
I'm so bad at these.
It's against Birdie's DC.
Yeah, which I don't...
Nope.
What is
Well,
Birdie's
I mean-
DC on that?
Higher than 4.
Make your check.
Yeah, it's higher than 4.
Yeah. So Adrex trips for like the 5th or 6th time today and falls prone in the ground, and immediately Birdie starts bashing you with a rock.
I rolled a 19 on with the rock.
I mean, it only does 1 point of damage.
Yeah.
And after-
Adrex lets out another slew of draconic.
And Wendy gets a big smile and lets forth the ones that he said earlier.
Birdie drops the rock and apologizes and says, "Sorry, I thought you."
Adrex glares at Birdie and just snorts cold out of his nose.
And you go to snort
Frozen
cold out of your nose, but nothing issues forth. Usually you feel the frost build up on the inside of your nostrils when you make a show of that, but today it's just regular breath.
That's weird.
Hey, it means you won't get hunted.
It's like he's sniffing a little bit, like.
Let's try to unleash my breath weapon on something.
And you just let out a
Birdie?
big gob of spit.
She spits all over Birdie.
He wouldn't actually do it at Birdie, despite how pissed he is.
Raazu helps Adrex to his feet, and then
Birdie drops the rock and just hides his hands behind his back.
dusts him off.
He's like,
Okay, that's
wasn't me,
terrible.
must have been a gnome.
That's worrisome.
I have plausible deniability.
I don't like that.
You have
I can't-
deniability. It's maybe
I-
not plausible.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe cold. I'm concerned.
I can't see in the dark. Just live with it.
So what's next?
I mean, I think we should follow this map and track down this Lydia.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm gonna leave the tripwire in place.
Don't leave that tripwire in
Oh,
place. Take it down.
I figure Adrex would have broken it by his sheer
Oh.
weight and size.
Adrex is massive.
What does the tripwire trip, Birdie?
Nothing. It's just a tripwire. It trips people.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know what
duh.
you're talking about. It trips nothing. It tripped me.
You probably deserved it.
Oh, by the by, Birdie, your stories, as near as I could tell, were completely wrong. The guy was really short, and there was no fire breathing whatsoever.
That you saw.
He did take a drop of my blood, which was weird.
Okay, we should go back and kill the gnome and get the blood back.
No.
No, that'll just make more blood, Birdie. That's not better.
Yeah, but it won't be your blood. Listen, like I said, I've got like six standard responses to things. And you told me to do the sixth one, and I hit Adrex with a rock.
And
We could go back in and hit the gnome with a rock.
Wait, I thought to hit people with a rock was the third one.
Is this another
No, that's-
walk and talk, or is this outside
Yes.
the shop?
yeah, it's another walk and talk.
As you're walking, you realize you're being tailed. Looking back behind you, you see a very unhealthy-looking, limping dog. It's got very scraggly, orangish fur. It's clearly been in some fights. One of its ears is chewed most of the way off. It's favoring its left foreleg as it's moving towards you. And, I mean, it's frothing a little bit at the mouth. And it's keeping up with your pace, but it's about 30 so feet behind you.
Oh, Brick Road, why do you have to bring a dog into it?
Just think, it's the next form of Josie Baba.
I didn't know old Atticus could shoot.
I'm having a hard time with this whole dog situation because I just got extremely distracted by the fact that now someone getting laid means something very different when it's a bird person.
Wow, that went places. That whole sentence just went places.
It's distracting.
It really is.
So who's taking care of the dog?
Okay, so, like, question,
Yeah.
because we're just going to get it out of the way. Who's going to pet the dog? I'm looking at Adrex.
Adrex is going to eat the dog.
And as you guys are stopping and discussing it, it's loping towards you.
Besides, it's probably a fairy dog.
Yeah, we shouldn't injure it.
Yeah.
Birdie
It
likes
looks like
dogs.
it's already seen better days anyway.
Yes, Adrex would totally be all over this dog. But last campaign, he was all over my character was all over the cat.
So you have to be different now, so you... Dogs. What's more different than a cat?
So I'm letting someone else have the opportunity to get a pet dog. And if no one's going to do it, it will be Adrex.
No,
Birdie will go up and pet the dog. I think Birdie is a dog person. Dog
You go to
kobold.
approach the dog. And as you do, it's making these pitiful whimpering noises. And as you reach out towards it, it blinks away. And suddenly it's sitting 5 or 6 feet to the other side. And kind
Birdie-
of cowering from you slightly.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm going to toss it some food.
I was going to do that. I was going to give it some meat from
We're
one of
both
the
going to just be
rations.
tossing food at this dog.
What are you tossing?
I got some meat.
Okay.
I got salted meat from my rations, but that's it.
You're just holding it out to him?
Yes, and then slowly approaching him with my hand, like food in one hand and my other hand out, like I'm gonna feed him and then pet him.
Starts pulling back for a few seconds. And then there's a thud on the ground next to him as Wendy throws out a chunk of meat. And instead of taking the food out of your hand, it blinks over to the food and starts slavishly grabbing it up off the ground.
That's
as
incredible.
soon
This
as it
dog
has-
is incredible.
As soon as it has a mouthful of food, it backs away from you and then very quickly blinks away. Every few moments, 5 or 10 feet back, like a mage in World of Warcraft. I know everybody here knows exactly what I mean by that.
Yes. Birdie puts the
Play
food
loud.
away, and he's very, very, very upset.
It might come back.
He doesn't like Fairyland.
It doesn't leave completely. It blinks
Unpettable
back.
dogs.
It blinks back far enough away that it's sure you're not running after it, and then it starts into its meal.
Birdie like starts waving the meat around. He's like, "Hey!" It's like, I got some more here. All you gotta do is let me pet you.
I'm just gonna be speaking to it in Sprite. Who's a good boy? Who's a good dog?
And after a few moments, it does come back up and start sniffing at the meat that Birdie's holding. So what's the plan here, Birdie? You want it to
I'm
take the
gonna-
meat out?
Like I said, just food in one hand, and then I'm gonna try and pet it.
Make an animal handling check
To handle this animal.
to handle this animal.
To handle the animal.
Oh yeah.
That is a 22.
After a few moments, you do manage to coax the dog to gingerly take the meat out of your hand, but it doesn't let you pet it. As soon as it has the meat in hand, it blinks back out of your reach. And once again, 100 or so feet away, far enough back to where it's sure that you're not chasing after it, and then it starts horking it down.
Birdie's like, okay, no, I am going to pet this dog. That is my new mission in life.
The plan of unpettable dogs sounds like my personal hell.
So, like, now I'm going to pull out some more meat.
Okay,
And
and this process repeats then.
Then I'm going to, but this time I'm going to try and jump on the back of the dog. Like, ride it.
Okay,
See if that works.
make a dexterity check.
Is Birdie
Make-
smaller than
Make
this
a
dog, by the
death
way?
athletics. This dog is large enough that Birdie could ride it. I mean,
You said dexterity athletics?
yeah, dex athletics.
Well, you mean dex acrobatics?
Acrobatics,
is
yes.
strength check, yeah. Okay, so that would be a 15.
You figure, okay, it's going to take the meat out of my hands. And it looks like this thing can only blink maybe 5 or 6 feet. If I'm quick and I anticipate where it's going to land, I should be able to get onto the thing's back. Next thing you know, everybody watching, this dog lets out a hellish yelp as it blinks away from Birdie. Birdie leaps forward, lands on the thing's back, terrifies it, knocks the thing prone to the ground, and it starts viciously trying to get itself away. And after a few more minutes, it blinks out from under Birdie and is running as fast as it can in the opposite direction. Every few moments, once again, blinking further and further up the path.
I'm sorry about our kobold friend!
Birdie yells out, "Why won't you let me love you?"
I think you deserve that.
Probably. Birdie like lowers his head in shame.
And a few minutes after that, you start hearing the din of the marketplace that Tactalo described. The hedge opens up into a very wide area, a large circular clearing in the middle, still ringed on all sides by large hedge walls, but all in the middle are a wide variety of open market stalls, including people that have just thrown blankets on the ground and covered in wares. The walls, instead of having doors or paths leading off, just more permanent structures have been carved into the side of the hedge. Wide variety of smells, a lot of food being cooked and traded here. all manner of strange things, including things that you would never think people would want to buy. I mean, people are selling things like chicken bones and scraps of cloth and used rags. There's a keg of water being ladled out with a wooden spoon. He's collecting 1 gold piece for a drink. You see all manner of weird and bizarre things throughout this hedge, and no small amount of elves.
Maybe they're spellcasting opponents. Maybe they're for hedge wizards.
Oh man, I must be a millionaire here because I have my Tinker's kit and it's just full of miscellaneous bric-a-brac.
That's the kind of things that the people are buying here.
Like, is there any anything sharp we can buy?
There's a place selling all just bent nails. Is that sharp enough?
I mean, almost by definition, it's not.
And wherever you go in this market, you draw attention. I mean, using the term people here, you understand, is a large variety of creatures. Lots of different shapes and sizes and varieties of various sylvan types. And some of them aren't being very courteous about it. Like, they're just openly gawking slack-jawed at you.
That's not very polite.
Birdie throws a rude gesture at those people. Just a little 2 foot tall gnome, just giving the finger. Not gnome,
Birdie, you know.
Kobold.
Red.
2.5 foot.
Yeah.
Roll percentile.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna say there's
percentile roll.
I'm gonna say there's a 3% chance one of the callers is selling snakes.
That'd be 99.
Okay, so you're fine.
Oh, well, sorry,
come
96.
on, Brick.
Wait, 36? God, these are terrible. 36.
Well, no, 3% would be a 3 or less. That's how percentile work.
You could have snaked him.
Could have gone the
Snake
other
that
way.
boy.
Metal is always 10's 10.
So what's the plan when you arrive in this marketplace? Nobody seems to shy away from you, but there are a lot of just stares and gawks. And you don't hear very much common being skirted around. It does seem like the trade tongue of this place is Sylvan.
Maybe we should just, start running around yelling out her name. Seems like a good idea.
No, we shouldn't do that. That does not seem like a good idea. That seems like not a good idea. Did we hear that she, actually sells anything here, or...
We heard her house was near here.
Here, yeah.
Listen, we are in the land of bad ideas. Embrace it.
I need to step away for a moment.
Okay.
I'll walk up to the nearest shop to where we've entered and said, "Excuse me, I'm looking for the House of Lydia in Sylvan."
Roll me a d20.
Roll it.
2.
And you start to ask your question, but you're interrupted by the loud thunk of this meat cleaver as this bulbous and only slightly foul-smelling green furry humanoid crashes his meat cleaver down onto this bench where it looks like he's butchering cats. He slides the tail to the side and starts working on the feet. And you ask about Lydia?
Mm-hmm.
And he snorts a big gob of phlegm into the back of his throat, spits it down onto the ground. Says that, yeah, he knows Lydia. She's, 2 weeks late on her payment.
Oh, what does she owe you payment for?
He gestures down at the cat, hacks off another one of its legs. Says, meat. I sell to her on credit, kind-hearted soul that I am.
And you haven't seen her in 2 weeks, or...
He says that he saw her just a few days ago. But she steered clear of his stall, obviously. And he asks, "What about you? You buy cat?"
No, I'm full for right now, thank you.
Birdie pokes his head around. How much for a thigh? Cat's good eating. He looks up at Red.
Looks you up and down. Birdie, roll a d12.
Thigh is the most valuable part of the cat.
9.
A 9. He looks you up and down, and you see his eyes fall on the... How do you carry your tinker stuff? Like in a satchel, or...
It's in a kind of a box in my bag,
Okay.
or on my belt. Like we'll just say it's in a square, like kind of like a hard leather case, square-shaped hard leather case on my belt.
It says Coleman.
His eyes fall on it for a second. And he says, "What you got?"
Maybe we need like a chart for like what Birdie has in his kit. Just reach in and I guess pull out like a small scrap of wire, I guess.
Cat cut.
When you open up the leather case, he looks greedily at a pair of just like needle nose pliers that you have, and you see him lick his lips a little bit.
He can't have my tools.
And he points at the pliers. He says, "For those, hold half cat."
You can get at least a whole cat from the side.
Yeah, I can. Birdie looks down. He says, "For those, I did need at least 2 cats."
2 cats. We have deal. He
Butchered cats, like fully butchered.
That's good trading.
And he does. He goes ahead and, I mean, I don't want to describe in detail the gruesomeness because we have viewers who have cats, and not everybody. I have to remember it all the time. Not everybody in the world hates cats as much as I do. So hopefully, I don't have people who are like crying right now.
No, these cats were dicks. These aren't good cats.
All cats are dicks. There's no such thing as a good cat.
These are
Don't-
chaotic, evil
Don't
cats.
lie to the poor people.
One of these cats is Jazzy
Jazzy
Baba.
Baba.
That's good.
Yeah,
cat.
he sells you 2 whole cats for a pair of needle nose pliers.
Birdie grabs the cats and he goes over to Wendy and says, "Hey, you gonna help me here? Cook them?"
I can smoke them.
We'll do that
If I
later.
had smoke.
And which way do we go to find Lydia's home? We'll remind her that she owes you as well.
He points all the way across the marketplace. And, I mean, lots and lots of paths meet this circular marketplace from all over the hedge. And he points to a particular one. And he tells you at the end of that hedge is a fork. Take the left and find the first secret door.
All right, that seems fair enough.
Yeah, sure.
So are these cats like wrapped in butcher paper, or are they just like skinned and he handed them to me?
No, he gave you them fully prepped. So I mean, they've been skinned. There's no fur. It's just the cuts of
Oh, they're fur
the
off.
good
cat.
meat.
So I'm asking, are they wrapped in like?
Yeah, they're
Butcher
wrapped
paper.
in butcher
Okay.
paper, and
Then I'll put them in my pack for now. We'll cook them later.
you don't have just like a terrible sack of bloody cat parts.
I don't know, like you are roast beef getting a horrible stack of bloody roast beef. I don't know what those people are doing back there.
Does anybody
Well,
else
we're
have
dinner
anything else they want to do in the marketplace? Or are we gonna go try to find Lydia?
I feel like I've done my shopping for this session.
Dude, is there like any interesting tools or anything like that?
I'll give you the same deal I usually give in these situations,
Uh-huh.
where you can pay. I mean,
Because I don't want to piece out my whole Tinker's kit here, but like,
we'll call it I'll give you an unspecified but interesting tool from the fairy market
okay,
that you can determine what it is later. But you have to make a D12 roll for it.
okay, we'll do that.
Socket wrench.
A 10.
11. 10.
10.
Yeah.
The young elfling who you're speaking to, through Red, because you don't speak Sylvan, says he only will part with this item that you're interested in if you give him a new story. Something he's never heard before.
I mean, we could tell him about how we snuck in and killed the orcs and took out the orc camp.
When you start telling the story, he stops you briefly, and he asks, this is something you and your friends have done? This is a true event?
Yes.
Then he says he's not interested. He wants to hear a story. He wants to hear a tale.
Oh.
You should tell him about the gnomes.
Oh, right, yeah. Like, I start telling him about, like, all the stuff that my tribe believes about gnomes.
But you think that's true.
I know, but, like, you guys seem to think it's not true. So maybe they won't.
So Red, all these terrible, because there are gnomes here in the marketplace infrequently.
Yeah.
They're not calling with them. But I mean, here you are translating this story about gnomes. Like, is Red self-conscious about this at all, or is he just telling it like it is?
No, this is just a story.
And during the story, I mean, he stops you repeatedly to ask details about names and places, and you can see that he's taking notes with ink and quill. But at the conclusion of the story, he thanks you with great interest, and you now have one unspecified tool from the fairy market.
Cool.
You leave out
Birdie thinks he got a one over on the guy because that's totally true.
You leave out the entrance that the catmonger... You guys have been to a cat house and a catmonger in the same session.
We just found the title for the YouTuber.
You follow the path down, and you take the left as indicated, and you start keeping an eye open for a secret door. And you're pretty sure you don't have to look hard, because you start hearing something inside the hedge that sounds like footfalls against wood very repeatedly.
I mean, those directions are going to get old pretty fast because this door isn't that secret.
I mean, you can't see where the door is. You just hear this somewhere inside the hedge.
I guess we find where the sound is loudest to us, and then start trying to push to the hedge, I guess.
Let's get an investigation check from the party here.
Who's got investigation?
I got a 3.
Sounds like a red thing.
Got a +8.
There we go.
Okay,
There,
make it at advantage, because I'm assuming you all are checking.
Yeah.
Uh, 21.
Okay. And after a while, you find a place where the hedge looks the same, but when you put your hands against it, you realize they're coming flush up against wood. It's a wooden door glamored to look like the rest of the hedge. And feeling around, you do find the handle. And this is also where the noise is the loudest.
I guess we knock on it.
Yeah, I'll knock.
I'm sick of going first. Someone else can go. Adrex says, well, we're
I have gone first through every single door except the one that you got owned. And I'm going to go to first through this one.
So is Red knocking or is Wendy knocking?
I'm
It's
knocking.
knocking. I'll let Wendy go through first.
Yeah.
So you're just opening the door?
Yeah.
Okay. You open the door, and the sound is of this elven woman dancing in the center of the room on her hardwood floor. And she looks haggard and exhausted, and she's breathing with lurching, ragged breaths. And her eyes have these dark bags underneath. Her shoulders are stooped down. You see the weight of her arms is almost too much for her to bear. And she's dancing away furiously. And she has trouble even lifting up her head and looking at you. And she just creaks out, "Please help me."
And then we
All
guess
right.
she's wearing the princess's slippers, right?
She is indeed. And that's where we'll take our break.
Okay, cool.
Looking down at her feet, you do see the slippers described by Princess Dandelion. Let's go ahead and put a Lizagirth on screen there. Let's take 15 minutes. Everybody go get your coffee, get your bagel, whatever you got to do. We'll reconvene at 4:45.
Ooh, Destil.